Hello everyone, it usually begins in silence, not absence. You're lying next to her. The room is dark, the air still. Her breath is soft, steady, familiar. You know the curve of her hip like the lines on your own palm. But lately something's changed. You touch her the way you always have, but her body doesn't respond with the same eagerness. Her kisses are tender, yes, but restrained. She's there, but not quite there. And you feel it in your bones, in your gut. A quiet slipping away. You don't know what to do with it, so you wait. You tell yourself maybe she's tired. Maybe work is stressing her out. Maybe it's hormones. You've tried being more gentle, more attentive. You've tried being more passionate too. But either way, something between you feels out of tune. Like you're dancing to music she's no longer hearing. Some men respond by going slower, taking more time, being more present, making space for her to open up. Others go the opposite direction, trying to reignite the spark with heat, kisses that are urgent, hands that move fast, trying to remind her of what used to be. But what if I told you that the real question isn't about speed, not slow versus passionate, but about attunement? Because here's the truth for many women. Intimacy isn't something you do to her, it's something you create with her, and the style that resonates most depends on what she feels in the space between. One woman may melt at the brush of slow fingertips across her back, savoring the feeling of being seen without being rushed. Another may crave the intensity of being swept into hunger, where eyes speak louder than words, where the world falls away, and sometimes she wants both, but in ways that make sense to her body, her emotions, and her history. And yet most men were never taught how to read those emotional cues. No one showed you how desire works differently in women. No one told you that passion without safety can feel invasive, or that slowness without presence can feel mechanical. So you're left to guess, and guessing turns into mistakes that create distance. You think she doesn't want you anymore. She thinks you don't understand her. Slowly, desire turns to confusion, and confusion turns to silence. Until one night, you're lying next to her, wondering how something so intimate could feel so lonely. Have you ever been there? Have you ever made love to someone who felt miles away? Have you ever tried everything slow, passionate, tender, bold, and still felt like you were getting it wrong? That's not because you're broken. That's not because she's impossible to please. It's because intimacy is not a formula. It's a conversation, and most of us were never taught the language. This video isn't just about which style, slow or passionate, women love more. It's about what lies underneath the question. It's about the space between two bodies and the emotional currents running beneath the surface. It's about the difference between touch that's for her and touch that's with her. It's about how women fall into desire not only through the body, but through the emotional landscape that surrounds it. Because when you understand why women crave slowness, and when they hunger for passion, you stop guessing, you stop performing, you start connecting. And when that happens, everything changes. So before we answer the question, we must ask another, what does intimacy feel like when she actually feels safe? And why is that often the missing ingredient in both slowness and passion? It happens gradually. The warmth you once shared so effortlessly begins to feel like something you have to reach for. You still love each other, you still laugh, you still touch, but something feels elusive, especially in moments of intimacy. The moments that once felt magnetic now feel scripted, mechanical, or even slightly off, like a symphony out of sync. She doesn't pull away, but she doesn't lean in either. She kisses you, but the kiss is brief. She says, "I'm just tired," and you believe her because you know she is. But there's more. You sense it. You always have. That quiet emotional undercurrent that says, "This isn't working for me," even if she never says it out loud. And here's what makes it even harder. She probably doesn't know how to explain it either. Because this isn't about whether you're being slow or passionate enough. It's about whether your touch feels attuned, whether she feels emotionally met before she feels physically desired. And that's not something she can spell out clearly in the middle of a moment when everything is already feeling fragile. Most men weren't raised in environments where women's arousal patterns were taught as emotional ecosystems. You were likely taught that women want gentleness, connection, or candlelight. Or maybe you learned that they crave mystery, dominance, or seduction. But in truth, those are surface-level gestures unless they're grounded in a deeper emotional presence. So what ends up happening? You try something new, a slower approach, more foreplay, more checking in, or maybe you try something more passionate, stronger kisses, more assertiveness, more risk. And sometimes it works, sometimes it doesn't. But when it doesn't, it feels like rejection. And rejection in intimacy is rarely just physical. It's the feeling of not being wanted, not being enough, not being able to get it right. And that pain, if left unspoken, quietly hardens into frustration, distance, or even shame. You may start to question yourself. Is she not attracted to me anymore? Is she bored? Is there someone else? Am I just failing at this? And she's likely asking herself, why don't I feel it anymore? Why do I shut down when he touches me? Why do I feel guilty for not wanting him the way I used to? And so the silence deepens. You try again, maybe with more effort this time. You bring her coffee in bed. You kiss her neck the way she used to like. You try to talk about it, and she nods, says she appreciates you. But the intimacy doesn't come back, not in the way you remember it. And now every attempt feels a little more loaded, like a test you keep failing. And when she does say yes, when you do make love, it's sweet. It's close, but something in her is holding back, and you can feel it. Not because she's cold, but because she's no longer inside the moment. You sense that she's allowing, not desiring. This is where many couples get stuck, in the loop of misattuned desire, because what no one talks about is that a woman's desire is often an echo of how emotionally safe she feels. Not just safe from harm, but safe from judgment, performance, emotional pressure, and the weight of unspoken expectations. If she senses that your desire for her is rooted in your need to feel like a man, or your fear that she's slipping away, or your craving for reassurance, she can't relax. Not because she doesn't love you, but because her body feels the emotional tension behind your touch. And when a woman can't relax, she can't feel. And when she can't feel, she starts to dissociate. She might still say yes, but her yes is coming from care, not craving. And that kind of yes slowly erodes connection over time. That's when couples fall into roles, the initiator and the avoider, the pursuer and the distancer, the one who longs for closeness, and the one who feels trapped by it. And neither one is wrong. Both are hurting. What's even more complicated is that she may want you. She may ache for the days when her body melted under your touch, when her desire felt effortless. But now her nervous system doesn't trust the space. Not because you did something wrong, but because somewhere along the way emotional safety slipped. And it wasn't addressed. So now every moment of intimacy feels like a subtle emotional negotiation between her body and her guilt. This is especially confusing for men who are doing everything right, being gentle, respectful, patient, or for men who are passionate, exciting, eager to reignite the spark. But it still falls flat, because neither style, slow nor passionate, can reach a woman who no longer feels emotionally invited. And that's the invisible pain point in so many long-term relationships. Not the absence of love, but the absence of emotional resonance inside the act of love. The feeling of giving your all and still missing her. The pain of holding someone in your arms and knowing you aren't reaching them. The confusion of doing everything you were taught and still not being able to bring her body back to life. It's heartbreaking because we've reduced intimacy to technique, to time, to frequency, to scripts. But women are not checklists. They're not aroused by just the act of being touched. They're aroused by being understood in the moment of touch. They need to feel the difference between a hand that wants access and a hand that seeks connection, between lips that crave release and lips that offer refuge. And unless she feels that difference, even the most passionate touch will fall flat. Even the slowest touch will feel empty. So before we ask which style women love more, slow or passionate, we need to ask, what kind of emotional environment are we creating inside the act itself? And if we could understand that, how much deeper could intimacy truly go? It was a rainy Tuesday in early spring, the kind of gray, slow day that makes everything feel a bit more tender, a bit more exposed. Maya stood at the kitchen sink, hands deep in soapy water, while Daniel moved quietly behind her, setting down his keys, checking his phone. They had been married for 8 years, 2 kids, mortgage, shared calendars, warmth, routine, and a touch of distance they rarely acknowledged. That night he came up behind her, wrapped his arms around her waist, and kissed the back of her neck, gently, tenderly, like he used to. She smiled faintly, but didn't melt. She stiffened just slightly, just enough for him to notice. He backed away, embarrassed, pretending he forgot something in the living room. Later in bed, he tried again, a different approach this time, more deliberate. His kisses were passionate, his hands confident. This time she didn't freeze, but her body didn't respond either. She touched him out of love, but her mind was already retreating, thinking about tomorrow's emails, the lunchboxes, the sense of emotional clutter she didn't know how to name. Afterward, she lay in silence. He turned over and stared at the ceiling. Both of them were wondering the same thing: what happened to us? In sessions like these, I often meet couples on the brink of emotional confusion. One partner tries harder, the other drifts further, and they both feel lost inside the same bed. So let's ask, what is going on in moments like these? The answer lives not just in biology, but in psychology. According to Dr. Emily Nagoski, author of Come As You Are, women's arousal works more like a responsive system than a spontaneous one. That means a woman's body doesn't just turn on like a light switch. It reacts to the environment, to her stress, to her sense of emotional closeness, to her perception of safety and non-judgment. That's why even a gentle kiss on the neck in the wrong emotional context can feel like pressure, and why a wild, passionate moment of hunger can feel threatening if the emotional tone hasn't been set beforehand. In contrast, many men are taught that passion, fast, fiery, intense, is the highest form of desire. They equate urgency with lust, and for some women that can feel exciting, especially when emotional safety has already been established. But without that foundation, passion can feel like being pulled into someone else's desire before her own has even had a chance to surface. So when men ask, Do women like it slow, or do they want it wild? They're often asking the wrong question, because desire doesn't live in the style, it lives in the space between styles, the psychological framing, the emotional safety, the timing, the non-verbal cues. And this is where the science becomes deeply intimate. At the Gottman Institute, one of the most well-respected relationship research centers in the world, John and Julie Gottman have shown that emotional safety is the #1 predictor of a woman's sexual satisfaction in long-term relationships. Not technique, not frequency, not slow or passionate safety. And emotional safety is not the absence of conflict. It's the presence of attunement, the feeling that you get me, that you're here with me, not just touching me, that you see me, not just the body you want something from. For Maya, her body wasn't shutting down because she no longer loved Daniel. It was shutting down because she didn't feel emotionally invited anymore. Their connection had become logistical, practical, efficient. The passion was there, but it wasn't tuned into her. The slowness was there, but it wasn't emotionally rich. She was touched, but not met. And here's what's wild: in follow-up interviews with thousands of women, researchers found that many women longed for both styles, slow and passionate, but only when the emotional tone felt safe and connected. Think about that. It's not about choosing one over the other. It's about what emotional experience the style is wrapped in. One woman said, "I love it when he takes his time, but only if I feel like he's really with me, not just going through the motions." Another said, "I love when he grabs me out of nowhere, but only if I feel emotionally close already. Otherwise, it feels like he's trying to light a fire on wet wood." In both cases, the style mattered less than the emotional environment. And here's where couples get into trouble. They start arguing about techniques. He says, "You don't like it when I do this." She says, "That's not true. I used to love it." And they both feel confused, not realizing that what changed wasn't the method, it was the meaning. So what do we do with this? We slow down, but not just physically. We slow down emotionally. We listen, not just with our ears, but with our presence. We stop asking, "Is this slow enough?" or "Is this passionate enough?" and start asking, "Does this feel emotionally safe? Does this feel like connection, or pressure, like invitation or expectation?" Because here's the hard truth: even the most skillful touch can land as demand if it's not grounded in emotional intimacy. And even the roughest, wildest, most passionate embrace can land as reverence if it's emotionally attuned. Maya eventually found the words for it in a late-night conversation. "I don't want you to stop touching me," she said, eyes filled with frustration and tenderness. "I just want to feel like when you touch me, you're seeing me. Not trying to get something from me. Not trying to fix the distance, just meeting me where I am." Daniel took a deep breath. He realized something important that night. He had been trying to use passion to reach her, without realizing that she first needed emotional closeness to open to that passion. And when he tried to be slow, he was still performing a technique, not creating space, not tuning in. It wasn't about passion versus slowness. It was about being emotionally present enough to know which moment called for which energy, and why. That's the intimacy women crave. Not one style over another, but the feeling of being seen and safe inside the moment. Intimacy is not a performance. It's not a menu of options to get right or wrong. It's a conversation in the dark, a tuning of breath, a gentle negotiation of emotional truths. And when we stop asking, "What should I do?" and begin asking, "What does this moment need?" everything shifts. The question isn't whether she wants it slow or passionate. It's whether your touch feels with her, not just for her. So how do we create that space? It begins with the most underrated and most powerful skill of all: emotional attunement. And attunement means being so present, so connected, that you can feel what she needs before she says it. Because you've been listening all along, not just to her words, but to her silences, to the way her body curls into herself when she's overwhelmed, to the way her laugh gets tighter when she's suppressing tension, to the way her kisses change when her heart starts to close. This is not about mind reading. It's about practicing emotional presence so consistently that intimacy becomes less about guessing and more about responding. One way to do this is to build what I call non-sexual intimacy scaffolding. These are micro moments throughout the day where she feels emotionally seen without the pressure of performance. A forehead kiss while she's washing the dishes. A long hug where you don't let go first. A quiet moment where you sit beside her and say, "I'm here. You don't have to be okay. I'm just here." These moments, small, quiet, often invisible, teach her body that your touch is not always a prelude to something else, that your presence is not conditional, that your affection doesn't always come with an agenda. And when her body learns this, it begins to relax. And when it relaxes, it begins to feel. And when it feels, it begins to crave again. Another practice: replace performance with curiosity. If you're unsure whether slow or passionate is what she needs, don't guess. Ask gently, with softness, with humility, not as a test, but as a moment of shared discovery. Not, "What do you want me to do?" That question can feel too pressurized. Try instead, "What would feel good to you right now?" Or, "Do you want closeness or space?" Even better, "How can I help you feel more safe right now?" When a woman hears that, something inside her shifts. She realizes she's not being pursued, she's being invited. And that invitation gives her the freedom to say yes, not out of pressure, but out of desire. Remember, slowness feels good when it's rich in emotional presence. Passion feels good when it's grounded in emotional connection. The method doesn't matter as much as why it's being used. And yet, let's not ignore the physical side, because many women do want passion, deep hunger, fierce touch, but they want it after safety. They want it once they've been softened, once their bodies have had the chance to trust again. They want to be taken, not out of aggression, but out of reverence. So if you're longing to bring that fire back in the bedroom, ask yourself, have I created a space where she feels emotionally safe enough to surrender? One way to do that: slow your goal. If the goal is orgasm, closeness becomes a transaction. If the goal is connection, every moment becomes meaningful, even if it doesn't lead to sex. Tell her, I don't need this to go anywhere. I just want to be close to you, to hold you, to feel you breathe. Mean it, and then prove it with your actions. If she hesitates, don't push, don't retreat either. Stay emotionally close even when she's physically distant. That's where trust rebuilds. In the non-punishing moments, over time she'll notice, her body will notice, the pressure will lift, and in that lifted space desire begins to stir again. There's also the power of sensual, non-goal-oriented touch. Run your hands over her back while she's falling asleep. Let your fingers trace the edge of her jaw while she's talking about something she cares about. Let your eyes linger, not with hunger, but with tenderness. Make her feel wanted without asking her to perform that want back to you. This kind of presence resets the nervous system. It tells her, you are safe. You are enough. You are not a body being managed. You are a woman being loved. And that is when she starts to come alive. Not because you figured out the right technique, but because you offered the right environment. And if passion is what she craves, she will let you know. But it will come from a place of her own longing, not from trying to keep you happy. That distinction matters more than most men realize. There's also the importance of aftercare, not just after sex, but after any emotional intimacy. If she opens up to you, be it physically or verbally, make space to hold that moment afterward. Don't rush to fix, analyze, or sexualize it. Hold her. Let the silence breathe. Say, that meant a lot to me. Thank you. And when she feels that her vulnerability is met with reverence, not reward, seeking, her nervous system begins to associate closeness with safety. That's how you make love even when you're not having sex. And that's how her body learns to crave you. Not just because of what you do, but because of how you make her feel when you do it. Because in the end, the answer to slow or passionate isn't a technique, it's a presence. It's a man who sees her, not just what she offers, but who she is underneath it all. The woman who sometimes needs slow. The woman who sometimes burns with fire. The woman who sometimes doesn't know what she needs, but who wants to be met gently right there in the unknown. Take a moment. Let all of this settle, not just in your mind, but in your chest, your breath, your heart. Because this conversation wasn't really about sex, was it? It was about safety. It was about the silent weight couples carry when desire starts to fade, and neither person knows how to bring it back without shame. It was about the longing to be touched in a way that doesn't just arouse, but remembers. The kind of touch that whispers, I see you. I haven't stopped seeing you. You see, women don't crave slow instead of passionate. They crave truthful touch. Touch that listens, that responds, that honors the moment over the method. Some days she'll need you to go slow, not just with your hands, but with your spirit. Other days, she'll want you to consume her, but only if she feels emotionally safe enough to be devoured. It's not about choosing one side. It's about reading the weather of her heart and adjusting your energy accordingly. And the same is true for you. You deserve a kind of intimacy that isn't built on performance. You deserve to be wanted for your presence, not your precision. You deserve to feel that your effort matters, that your love doesn't disappear into a void of silence. That kind of connection begins with curiosity, with emotional fluency, with moments where you ask, how does this feel to you? And then actually stay present enough to hear the answer. And when you do, when you start building intimacy not from guessing, but from attunement, something holy returns to your relationship. The fire, the softness, the aliveness. Not just in bed, but in how you reach for each other on an ordinary Tuesday when nothing's going right and everything still feels possible. So I want to ask you, gently, intimately, which part of this message touched you the most? Was there a moment when you saw yourself? Was there a line that opened something you didn't have words for? I would be honored if you shared it in the comments below, because sometimes the healing begins not just in what we learn, but in realizing we are not alone in what we feel. And if this message resonated with you, if it felt like something you didn't even know you needed, please consider subscribing to this channel. Because every week we dive deeper into the hidden places of love. The places that ache, the places that long, the places that still believe in soft, powerful connection in a world that often forgets how to be tender. Thank you for being here. Thank you for your courage to explore something this personal, this vulnerable, this sacred. Intimacy is not lost, it is remembered. And tonight, maybe you will begin remembering it together.